What I'm going to be talking to all you guys about today is basically how we used Imgur, Reddit, YouTube, and Discord to gain pre-alpha signups for a new IP from an unknown studio. I think a lot of the folks that are watching this are probably coming in a similar situation to where we were with Proletariat, where we wanted to build a new IP, but also we weren't an existing developer that had lots of previous traction and lots of existing customer base. And this was how we worked through the summer of 2018 to build our pre-alpha sign up. And I think that there's a lot of stuff that is really still relevant today. So we can go to the next slide. Couple of details on Proletariat and Spellbreak if you've never heard of us. We actually have been around for a while. We were founded in 2012. Our first game was a mobile title, and then we did another PC title before Spellbreak. We're mostly located in Boston, Mass. Of course, I think everyone right now is potentially remote. We've raised about 30 million in total venture capital over a couple of rounds of funding. We're about 85 people on the team currently, although we're growing to like 150 to support Spellbreak for the rest of this year. And then a little bit about Spellbreak. So for anyone who hasn't seen it, there are a couple of clips of Spellbreak in here, but Spellbreak is an action spellcasting battle royale. It's going to be free to play. We started developing it back in Q4 of 2016, which feels like forever ago. But we are launching very soon. We are going to be releasing on Xbox One, Switch, PS4, and the Epic Game Store with full crossplay and full cross progression. But it's not really what this talks about. This is mostly focused on our pre-alpha test that we ran over the summer of 2018 that was only PC and how we basically gained traction for that. So we can go to the next slide. So if there's one thing that you guys could take away from this talk, I think it should be this. No one cares about your game. And I think that I cannot recommend enough how humble you should be about this, because there's so many games coming out. There's so much noise all the time, and you're competing with everyone. You're competing with Netflix, you're competing with with Facebook and TikTok. No one cares about your game. And so we can go to the next slide. It's your job to make people care. And I think that it's not too early. If you think it's too early to start, I can tell you that we made the decision to go out in a pre-alpha because we were not really getting anywhere with potential partners and publishers. We knew we had to show traction, and it was way before any of us were comfortable having players in the game. It was really early in terms of its course of development. I look back at some of those videos now of what the gameplay actually looked like at that time, and it was very early. But I think it's really important to find a way to make players really care about your game. So we can go to the next slide. Before I jump into all of the lessons learned here, I think it's important to just do a quick disclaimer. Every game is different, every market is different, every team is different. I'm going to give you a bunch of advice here, so take all of it with a grain of salt. I think that's really important to do. On top of that, I think we made a bunch of really smart decisions, but we also got really lucky. And so I think it's important to acknowledge that. And the really unsatisfying thing is that the best way to make players care about your game is to make a game that players care about, and that's incredibly difficult. So now we can start in on some of these pieces. So to give you a sense of where we started, what we wanted to do was get interest, capture interest from excited fans, get their email addresses for them to sign up for our pre-alpha, and then get them engaged with the game. The number one thing I think everyone should be doing right now is focusing on their high upside channels. And so that's not things like Twitter or Facebook, because, at the time our Twitter had very few followers, a couple hundred. That's not how you go viral. So what we did instead is we actually took our development blog and we put it on Imgur. And so by doing that, we were actually able to generate, you can see that thing has 200,000 views. And that would drive tens of thousands of email signups for our email list. And no one had even heard of the game. We didn't even have a name for the game at this point. We hadn't even announced the name yet. And that was a big reason why I think we were able to grow, is looking at channels like Imgur, like 9gag, like Reddit, where you can actually still go viral without needing a base to build from. And there's a lot of these out here, and they change all the time, but focus on areas where you can actually go viral to get on still like a top viral page. And those drive, like we just had a another set of Imager GIFs go viral just a couple of weeks ago, and it still drives hundreds of thousands of views. And I think it's really valuable as a channel to focus on the ones that actually can get you to these viral levels. We can go to the next slide. So the next piece of this, I think, is for anything you're going to be posting, you want to make sure that it's actually authentic. So one of the things that we did for all of our posts is we did not actually, because they were set up to be dev blogs, we did not actually say, hey, download this game right now or sign up. Instead, what we did is we'd wait for basically the first comment to actually basically say like, hey, how do I get the game? And then we'd respond, or someone in the community would respond with the link. And that gave this sense that this was genuinely authentic interest, and that fed on itself. And so when you're thinking about the post you're putting out there, consider the tone you're actually structuring and make sure that you think about how you're leaving players that come into it. Like players will immediately detect if it feels like an advertisement. So how can you make it authentic in terms of like, you're sharing this because you're gamers too, and you want, people to see your game. That sort of stuff I think goes a really long way. So you can go to the next slide. So the next piece that we wanted to do once we started to get the ball rolling here was to do it consistently. And that meant that the reason to do it consistently, I think there's two of them. One, the big one is you want, players can start to expect to see content on a regular basis. So at this point and we'll get to this a little bit later, the game was under NDA. So we had full control over when we would share content, but it set up this regular cadence of expectation for our players on when they could see something new. The second piece is I think it's just important to build that muscle into your own team to be posting content on a regular basis, but making sure it's good. The worst thing you can do is continue to keep up consistent content if it's just not good. If it's not working, you need to reevaluate if it's the channel, if it's the content, whatever it is. Don't just keep putting it out there because I think you're wasting your own time. Go to the next slide. So I don't think this streams as well going through it, but we can certainly potentially send you guys some links. You can just Google for some animated GIFs of Spellbreak. But I think for games right now, animated GIFs and short form video is incredibly important. So if you haven't already had a conversation on how your game is going to show in an animated GIF, you need to have it. I think you need to be thinking about, and it doesn't have to be super fast action skill shots in the way, we had this in Spellbreak. It could be, poignant moments or touching moments or cute things or funny things. And that stuff is incredibly necessary right now, because the water cooler moments that people used to share in the office where they would say like, hey, I was playing this cool game or I fought this cool boss, no longer exist. They're all getting shared as animated GIFs now, whether it be through TikTok or Instagram or whatever it is. And so you really want to be thinking about how does our game show as an animated GIF? And if it doesn't show well, should really be thinking about why. We can go to the next slide. So then once you actually have people engaged, so what we had here is we had gotten a number of posts to go viral on a few of these channels, and players were signing up for our pre-alpha. And so they would sign up, we used MailChimp for this. And once we had that interest, we tried to immediately tap into it further. And so what we would say is, we basically made people wait about a week or two for a key. And we would say like, but if you come in through a referral, we'll give you a key immediately. And so it wasn't immediately, but it was basically like every day. And that drove a lot of people to say like, hey, of my friends, you guys can get a key right now. You can skip the line. And that was really meaningful to drive a lot of our growth. At one point during the summer, we were getting like 60 to 70% of our signups that were all referrals. And some people were like super referrers because they would post it and they'd be like, hey, I'm posting this in my 500 person Discord server, or I'm posting this to Reddit or whatever it is. Be sure to use my name as a referrer. And we didn't give the referrers any actual value. We didn't provide them with anything. I think that was a miss. I think we could have done something where we said like, hey, if you refer X number of people, we'll give you this sweet outfit at launch. We didn't do that because we just didn't have the resources or the time. But even without any reason to do it, it was enough for people. People were so excited to like be a referrer and to share that they still did it. And it drove a massive number of signups for us. And go to the next slide. So then the next piece is, we knew that email wasn't frequent enough or wasn't like enough to actually drive the community. So we focused the community into Discord. And the way we did that is we said, hey, once you sign up for a key, it'll take a week or two to get there. If you came in as a referral, we'll give you it right away because we figured you were already tapped into the community because you had a refer. But if not, we would say, if you want a key really fast, join our Discord. And so what would happen is people would see a viral post on Imager. They would sign up for the email. In the email, we would say, hey, it's going to be about a week or two, depending on demand, for you to get a key. But if you join our Discord, you'll probably get one tomorrow. And so that started to drive a ton of people into our Discord server. And we knew that Discord was going to be really useful for us because we could engage directly with them and be able to tap in to that audience in a much better way than we could through any other social channel that was currently out there or through email. So we can go to the next slide. So the next piece we did here is we, like I mentioned before, we had people under NDA, but here's a little secret. It wasn't like a real legally binding NDA, even though NDAs are kind of like questionably legally binding. This was just a check mark. This was the actual sign up form. And there was just a check mark that said, you know, I'm going to participate and I agree to not stream or share any game details outside of the official Discord server. And that was it. And we basically just threatened people that we would ban them if they did this, and almost no one did. A couple of people would do it occasionally by accident, and the community would actually like self-regulate, and they would come in and, you know, go to that streamer and say like, hey, this is under NDA, you can't share it. And it worked. And it basically kept it, even when we were up to about, at one point, like at the very end of the beta, we had almost 200,000 players. And at that point we actually had to ban a couple people because they were kind of like intentionally trying to share stuff, but it went, you know, 9 months without us ever needing to actually do that. So I think controlling this is really important because it allows you to build a lot of interest around anything that you're going to put out. And there's a real scarcity of content that you keep control over. And that becomes really valuable for every piece of content you then put out. You can go to the next slide. So the next piece we did inside of the Discord is we started to really build that community by having a number of reasons you wanted to be there. So inside of the Discord, if you were an actual tester, we had this Discord bot set up where you would send the Discord bot your key, the actual like string from Steam, or you know, we went through a couple different platforms at that time, but like you take your Steam key and you would send it to the bot would check that to see if it actually was a real key and then give you a Discord role. That role would come in and actually unlock a series of different rooms for you that were all private, that were all for testers only. And so it created this cool kids club for people that actually had that key and allowed them to engage with other testers and feel like they were getting secret info. Because at any given time, only about like a third of the people in the Discord were actually testers. So there was a big group of people that were not. And so those people were constantly asking like, hey, you know, like what's going on? Is the game fun? Is it worth waiting for? And all these people that were testers were like, yes, the game's super fun. Definitely like be excited. Your key is going to be coming soon. And it created this really interesting dynamic. And on top of that, we also set up basically a bunch of reasons to be in Discord. So Discord became the first place we posted everything. So this is the left side screen is basically a screenshot of our work in progress channel, where we just had developers just like on the team whenever they wanted, just kind of drop in a video of whatever they were working on that week. At that time, we were doing weekly updates to the game, and it drove a bunch of interest because then the community knew that they could, if they were on the inside paying attention to the Discord, they would see the newest stuff before anyone else. And you can see that that thing on the right was actually a meme that was shared, you know, was shared on 9gag and a number of different sites about folks that like didn't have a key yet. And I think it really represents the kind of the buildup that you get by making people want, like, you know, the value they get from actually being involved and engaged. We can go to the next slide. So the next thing we did once we had all these folks in Discord was we basically forced them to become connected to each other. And so the left side here shows what our actual playtest schedule was. So Spellbreak's a battle royale game. At the time, we didn't have enough developers on the Proletariat team to fill a full lobby ourselves. And so we needed players in order to even test the game. And so what we would do is we set up regularly scheduled playtests, but we basically forced everyone that was playing to get into voice chat in Discord. And so what it meant was all of these people were starting to make friends with each other because they would get into Discord, they would start to chat, and they'd be like, oh man, good play. You guys, you beat me last time. I got you this time. And we started develop these social connections across this entire group of a few hundred players that became really strong and was really the kind of like undercurrent and basis for the community. And I think without us really pushing these playtests, I don't think it would have actually happened, because I think that that sort of loose social connection of just being in text chat or whatever is not the same as like forcing you to play with the same group of players over and over again for weeks. And that was really valuable to kind of create the undercurrent of the initial community for Spellbreak. And it's something that also gave the developers an opportunity to really engage with the players. Like I was often in these really frequently, just playing with players. And so there was tons of great feedback to be had out of that. But the real value, I think, was in establishing the social connections between the community and making them all comfortable playing with each other. So you can go to the next slide. So this next piece, one of the things around having the game under NDA is it meant that no one could share content, but they wanted to make it. And so what we built is we built a highlights channel in our Discord, and we said, hey, you guys can use Streamable, which doesn't have any externally facing links, to like create your highlights and share them with each other. And we really tried to push them to give feedback to each other on like what made a good highlight. And we eventually instituted a thing where we said, we're going to take the best sort of montage highlight reels, and we're going to post those to the official Proletariat Spellbreak YouTube page. And so that meant that people were working on training themselves to make great Spellbreak content by working as a community to give each other feedback. And they were incentivized because since the game was under NDA, they could be one of the few people that got their actual like sweet plays shown on the official Spellbreak YouTube. And for us, it was awesome because it was just content we didn't have to create. Like these people did a better job than we could have at the time. And so this meant that we had a whole bunch of people making this content. And then when we actually went fully live into the closed alpha, when we lifted the NDA, we actually saw that like so many of these people had this whole library of videos they just dropped on day one. So right when we went live, there was a whole bunch of like YouTube videos where people had 5, 6, 8, and they were already in their backlog and they were all awesome. And so they just dropped them all. And that was a huge benefit to us. And so it created this interest and this kind of positive attitude around content creation inside of the community really early that I think was incredibly valuable to generate that kind of content. You can go next slide. So the next piece we did is, because we told the Discord community they were gonna see everything first, we would actually share any of the public stuff that we would actually put up there initially. And so the best example I can give of this is this pre-alpha teaser video that we actually had in here was our very first launch of our YouTube channel in October of 2018. We had no followers in there. And so what we did is we said initially, hey guys, can everyone follow the Spellbreak YouTube channel, because we want to have the custom URL to even get enough followers to have that, enough subscribers. And so once we had that, we actually posted this up, and it was just 90 seconds of gameplay. And what ended up happening is so many people engaged with it coming out of the Discord, because we said, hey, you guys are going to see this an hour early before we flip the switch to be public, that it made the video go viral on YouTube. And so this is actually one of the things that like vaulted us in terms of size, because it went viral on YouTube and it got picked up by, just organically by a number of different gaming websites and a number of different gaming influencers. And our Discord server doubled in size in 4 days. We went from 30,000 to 60,000 people in the course of 4 days. And so that was all driven by basically this one piece of content that we had everyone, like we basically said, everyone come in here, share, like, update, like upvote this. And it drove it, and we started to do that with everything. So we'd say, hey, you guys get to see this early, go check it out, like, comment, whatever. And that would really help us for seeding the engagement with all of our content when it started. You go to the last slide. So this last piece here, so these are actual memes that I pulled out of the Discord meme channel from that era. So we had a meme channel also set up in the same way that we had a highlights channel. And what it did is lots of people would just hang out there. We made the meme channel accessible to everyone, not just testers. And I think that was really important, because it meant that tons of people that didn't have a key yet could still be making memes, and the people that did have a key, the testers, could also be doing it as well. And what they did is they basically built like some of our best marketing campaigns ever, because these memes would then go get shared out through their own channels, like, on their own Discord servers, on their own Twitter. And this stuff was really valuable to us, because it was basically them just like giving us the best possible marketing we could have about how valuable it was to have a Spellbreak key, how great the game was, right? And so having that meme channel was incredibly useful. And I think it was something where I kind of thought it was silly when we first added it. I was like, why do we do this? And then I just saw the impact of all of these things getting posted all the time. And I was like, we really need to double down. And I think we're considering even more, how do you take this one step further? Because I think one of the big things to consider right now is with a game, with an ongoing live operated game, something like Spellbreak, is the opportunity for it to actually become like the memes that people create in the game to become almost like the medium of communication between friends, right? And I think that's something that we're starting to see more and more in the way people are sharing and communicating through stuff like this. And so the more you can enable and train your community to do that, the more they're going to use it as a tool. And that just benefits you, because every once in a while, like mostly this is kind of all inside baseball, right? It's all people in the Spellbreak community just kind of sharing memes themselves. But occasionally some of these memes break out and they come outside of your community. And then you end up in a situation where people are like, a bunch of people in the Spellbreak community are like, haha, that's so funny. But there's always a few people that are like, what game is this? What are you guys talking about? And that's just free engagement, free new players that you're able to attract because you've built this community that is all around sharing these memes. So there you go. I think this is the last slide here is the overall summary.
Thank you, Seth. That was awesome. So we got a bunch of questions here. The first one is, have you tracked pre-alpha player retention, versus like launch or toward launch?
Yeah, so we have, as you can expect, some subset of those people are insanely engaged. They're some of our most engaged. They play every day. Some of them have thousands of hours in the game, which is just crazy. Like we did a calculation on the top 1% of Spellbreak players, and they basically play 40 hours a week, and they have since the summer of 2018. And it's just like, that's insane. One of the challenges though in going through the process from pre-alpha to alpha to beta to where we are now is that we changed the game a lot. And so the thing I would be conscious of is that while those actual users can be really great, you're basically torching them. So a bunch of players came in and they really loved some of the original kind of like movement mechanics and the really, really high skill cap the game had initially. And we kind of changed that over time. And they're just like, it's not the game they love anymore. And we've lost them forever. And that's fine because they were like, a really small subset. And I think at the time the game, if we'd kept on that same path, the game would be too niche. But, I think you should expect to lose a lot of those players. So what we try to do, one of the real reasons why we limited the number of keys we were giving out is we just wanted to have enough players in the game to get reasonable retention and metrics without torching those players. Because we figured a player will come in and we'll lose them, where if they're still waiting for a key and they haven't had a chance to play it yet, we know we're going to continue to increase retention. So let's use the minimum number of players possible to continue to get that information without using all of them, which is one of the reasons why we never did an open beta, because we figured that would just be like a free way to get rid of a lot of really great users, knowing we're going to continue to invest in the game and increase the retention.
Got it. This isn't a question, just a statement real quick from someone that said, no one gives a shit about your game is something we will be posting up all over the office to remind us. Thank you. Next question is, I just thought that was great to share because it is a great sentiment. Do you foresee an issue in scalability using Discord as your central community hub?
Yeah, I mean, so we've bumped into the upper limit a few times. Sort of soft cap is about 300,000. And so we call basically every month, and we just like call anyone who hasn't been active in a month. And that's like posting in a channel. I think, you're seeing some of the bigger games now. There are some games that are bigger than us that are approaching the sort of like 500,000 person limit. I think there is some scalability concern. What we see now is basically a lot of sub Discord spin up by like region or I guess like almost, interest, where we have, there's a number of competitive Spellbreak Discords. There's, a Discord for Brazil and Germany and France and Tokyo, Japan, I mean. And so there's a bunch of them. But we use Discord as kind of the central hub for our main community stuff, mainly because we felt like it's the best, lowest barrier for us to possibly engage. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely a concern. We would not be able to actually moderate a community that size without like an army of volunteer moderators. And so that was the other piece, is that we have, you know, several people on the community team, but they spend a lot of time working with volunteer moderators that spend a lot of their time. You know, we have something like 15 or 20 of them, you know, when some of them speak multiple languages, and we're very lucky to have that, because otherwise it would be completely unmanageable. But I think it's important these days to decide on a single focal point where you want to send people, to be like, hey, go ask your question in this server or in this Discord server, or ask this question on Reddit or whatever it is. And more, I think you're better off choosing an existing platform than running your own forums. You know, like, you know, our original game, we had our own forums on our own website, and I just don't think that's valuable anymore. I think you want to pick a single place and drive people there. And I think it's important to do that early, because if you don't, the players will choose one and it might not be one you want. So for example, if, you know, you don't have control over your own Reddit, because like, you know, like we actually have the official Reddit because we, you know, we were the creators of it, but that's not the case for a lot of other games. Then players could go there, but then if you don't, you know, if you're not the owner and the moderator of that, that can be really scary. Or, you know, if all of your community is just going to the Steam forums, for example, or something like that, like that's like, you want to be thoughtful on where you want to send your community, and pick a place early, and then just stick to, hey, this is where everyone should go. You have a question, go here.
Awesome. Kind of merging off that, how do you leverage Reddit?
So Reddit's a much smaller audience for us than Discord. We use Reddit for more longer form stuff that needs to be less ephemeral. So things in Discord move really quickly, as with any like kind of chat sort of thing. So that's where we post like our official patch notes, for example, are anchored in Reddit, because we think it does the best job to give people a chance to communicate with us. We do patch notes in there. We do other forms of content in there. That's where our official roadmap sits. Rather than having kind of our own separate blog, which we do have and we use occasionally, we rather actually just do it straight into the Reddit. I don't know if Reddit's the right thing long term, because again, it's you know, I think we only have 20,000 people in our Reddit or something like that, 19,000, and so it's definitely much smaller than our Discord, which has like 220,000 or something, and so it's something that we don't use as much right now. Though, if you go, the vast majority of the things on Reddit are memes. And that's kind of what we've seen from all of our channels, is that they slowly get taken over by basically everyone just sharing memes, and we're kind of okay with that. But that's what we use Reddit for.
Got it. How do you think TikTok changes things today? Does it at all?
Yeah, I mean, I think it will. I think it's still very much the Wild West. I don't think anyone really knows what to do about it. We have a lot, like Spellbreak has a lot of views, but at the end of the day, the vast majority of the stuff that's getting shared for Spellbreak is still gameplay clips, whether it's TikTok or Instagram or any of these other places. Now, we might get to a point where we have some cultural, you know, some sort of insane cultural relevance like Fortnite does, where people are sharing, you know, the Spellbreak dances or whatever. But I think right now, I see it as another avenue to be sharing your sweet gameplay clips. And so that's really your gameplay clips and your memes. So, you know, I think it will be another useful channel. I think we're all trying to figure out basically like, how do you leverage it effectively? And it seems like there are not quite as much tools to do that, because it's not really a social network. You know, it's not like, you know, everyone that follows Spellbreak will see the Spellbreak content all that often because of the way the algorithm currently works. But it's definitely something where you absolutely should be caring about it and thinking about it, because I think, you know, just the monster growth in the last 6 months, it's become a much bigger channel. When we actually do surveys of our community, we ask like, you know, what social networks do you use? And I think it's grown from like only 12 or 14% of our community to like 60% of our community are now on TikTok, or just over the last 6 months.
Wow. Interesting. Can you give a high level overview of who managed these efforts for the studio? Was it just the dev team? Were there marketing folks? How did you scale that team, and how much time did the dedication to that like ramp?
So we had a couple of people focused on this. We had our at the time, our community director, who's now our like global head of marketing. He did a lot of the early stuff with Imager. And then it was really a group of only like 3 or 4 people that were kind of working part-time on it, as well as like a full-time community manager for the early stuff. And that was really built around wrangling the content internally, getting help from the development team to get like, you know, cool animated GIFs made, and doing the work to actually post it. and then doing, we sort of relied on the entire dev team to help with the engagement on Discord. So having them, drop clips of what they were working on or join in the playtest was really valuable. But I would say you don't need a large team to start this, but I do think it's really important to have 1 or 2 people that are focused on your growth side and creating that content and actually doing that work. And the sooner you can actually start to slice off resources to actually be developing that sort of content or enabling your community to develop that content, the better off you're going to be, because it's always going to be a challenge to prioritize it against the development team.
Got it. I just want to acknowledge that we are going to go over a little bit, but there's a couple more questions that I want to try to get to for those that want to stick around.
I'll try to answer fast.
Yeah. Did you engage in direct moderation and admin of your communities on Discord, or was it mostly push content or moderated by moderators that you onboarded, or when did that start to change?
So when we were small, when it was only 15, 20,000 people, it was all just internal. We didn't have any moderators. It was basically a couple of people on the development team and our director of community at the time. We were kind of all moderating it because it wasn't there. We could wake up in the morning and you could read all the activity really quickly. And then as soon as we kind of broke out of that level, it just became completely unmanageable really fast. But we have always done a lot of work to train the volunteer moderators. So it was still really hands-on. At the end of the day, there's only a handful of admins that can actually do stuff. And so it still would rely on basically the moderators, sort of flagging hey, this person's spamming or whatever. And then someone would have to go in and manage it. So it wasn't until we got till the size we are now, where we have, a lot of people that are now managing it overall. And so when we were small though, that smaller community, you can do it with just a handful of people kind of part-time, because there isn't a lot of interest and upside in people coming in and kind of ruining the community at that point, because there aren't enough eyeballs. But once you get above probably, I would say 20,000, 30,000 people, you need to take it much more seriously, because then there's enough people in there for people to find it interesting to spam.
Got it. So yeah, we'll do one more question. So how do you plan on carrying the momentum? As you said earlier, you changed the game a bunch. Some of the earliest folks in the community kind of got burned. A lot of them retained. As it keeps growing, how do you continue to engage, from after the beta ends to the upcoming full release, especially when you don't have the firm release date?
Yeah. It's things definitely shift. I mean, I think, if I could do it all again, I would have kept the game under NDA longer. I would have kept it so that we could have been in control of that information and kind of sharing content at a more regular cadence. The biggest thing that we're focused on right now as we get close to release is, we're up to about 1.7 or 1.8 million people that have signed up during the course of all the pre-alpha, the alpha, and the beta. And so we're obviously going to be leveraging all of those people on the email side. We're also, we're just doing some straight traditional marketing. We're doing some digital spend. We're doing, just listening to the last talk, we're doing a bunch of influencer spend as well, looking into that, trying to do as much as we can organically with influencers too. And so that's a big piece. But what we're hoping to do is start to activate, especially the super engaged that are still in our Discord, to really help propel that. So our lead up to launch includes basically a 10-day countdown that is going to be a bunch of content that we really want them to start to amplify. And we're setting up basically the ability, we're doing something similar here, where effectively we're going to be opening up several different play sessions for different regions to come in and see the launch version of the game early, capture video, whether they be from the journalist side or the influencer side, so that they have their videos ready to go that are under embargo for launch day. We're still sticking to a lot of the similar tactics, it's just at a different scale. We're trying to back that up with some more traditional marketing spend now that we're on the very edge of launching.